Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to present a topic about the evaluation of the suitability of not specialistic volunteer researcher for coral reef fish surveys in a study case in Mafia Island, Tanzania. So this research happens in Mafia Island, which is located in Zanzibar archipelago in Tanzania, Africa. Frontier Tanzania, it's a research program in Tanzanian coast since 1989, who was created to protect the south of Mafia Island, so Ruji Mafia Wildlife Marine Park, where we can find a great diversity of marine wildlife there. The goals to the research is to test and validate that non-specialistic volunteer divers are able to correctly identify fish living in coral reefs, to prove that it takes learning to improve your abilities by doing several census, and be able to estimate lengths with 80% accuracy in relation to the true distribution. And the other goal is to create a baseline survey and monitor conditions in marine habitats. So the advantage to volunteers is to provision of manpower sufficient to conduct extensive surveys. It's also a significant financial saving because volunteers are workers who are not paid, and the public awareness of ecological problems through active participation can realize the problem. So the method of this research, it's they are working in groups of 12 to 25 individuals by pairs during 10 weeks periods, 3 times each year. The reef survey consists in a visual census of 56 selected reef fish species to determine their diversity, abundance, and length frequency distribution of Serranidae. So the Serranidae, it's a large family of fishes belonging to the order of Perciformes. They choose these species because they are conspicuous, easily identified, and not very pelagic. They also choose them because they are a target commercial fisheries and have a slow growth rate and large age at maturity, making them vulnerable to overfishing. They also, during the first week, several exercises are making dive training in the identification and ecological formation of species, and to learn about different survey techniques. The study area and material, so they're working in pairs to survey a reef profile. The study area is a shallow area next to the coal bay, which is exposed at the low spring tide. They are surrounded by sand, and that means that they are isolated reef from other by 20 meters in all directions, and that reduces the possibility to reef fish migration into or out the study site during the trial period. The study area can be surveyed fully in 30 minutes. For the material, they have 50 plastic strips into length between 10 centimeter and 1 centimeter. There are 300 randomly in a 100-meter rope. The rope was then laid out on the seabed next to the study site. And after noting the length of the reference seek, divers swam along the rope, classifying the length of canvas into 10 centimeter size classes. So 6 pairs of volunteer divers surveyed the site on 5 consecutive days. One experienced research diver, referred to as the control diver, also surveyed the site to compare the precision achieved under the identical condition over the same time period, and both groups census the fish population. all surveyed were conducted with 1 hour of slack high water. So it's a short period in a body of tidal water when the water is completely unstressed. So it's to avoid change in activity between nocturnal and diurnal fish, or to avoid change in fish activity or distribution with current speed. During the census one, the experience of fish identification was limited to the study of underwater photographs, drawings, and 3 dives on coral reefs. The census 2 happened 5 weeks later. So for the data analysis, they calculate the precision is the measure of the repeatability or similarity between fish counts. The similarity between the counts was obtained using Czechowski's proportional similarity index. The index range for 0 when 2 censuses have no species in common, to 1 when the distribution of individuals across species is identical. The similarities between the true and estimated distribution of length of plastic strips were determined. And the last data is the amplitude of the difference between the two distributions. It was calculated using the Kolmogorov-Simorov test. This test calculates the maximum difference between size class. The first result is this figure 1. So we can say in the red one that the number of species in census 1 is upper than the number of species in the census 2. So we can conclude that the species misidentified in census 1 is due to a lack of experience because of the low probability of the fish migration. And the decrease in the misidentified species in census 2 suggests an improvement in species identification. In this square, we can see that the number of individual census 1 is lower than the number of individuals in the census 2. So we can conclude that volunteers have improved in the censoring. In this figure, the figure A is the repeat counts by individual divers in census 1 and 2. The individual measure in these figures, we can say that in the individual measures of consistency for each diver were determined following computation of similitude index. In the census 1, we can find a mean of 0.648, and in the census 2, a mean of 0.776. That means an increase of 12.8%. So the loss of coherence was reduced between census 1 and 2. This proved an improvement in individual voluntary dives. And in the figure B, it's a repeat count by 12 different divers in census 1 and 2. So the census 1, it's a mean of 0.694, and the census 2, a mean of 0.825. So we can find an increase of 13.1%. That means this proves an improvement in volunteer survey. The estimates of length of the canvas strip were used to produce frequency distributions. So Kolmogorov-Simorov test shows that the estimated distributions were most similar to the true distribution by the third trial. So here P means no significant difference between the estimate and true distribution of length. In the census 1, we can find P it's 0.44, and in the census 3, we can find P it's 0.88. The line is overlapped the frequency bars on the third test here, so it shows that it's shows that the divers were able to improve their accuracy during the trials. Uh, in this table, we can see a majority of index next equal or close to 1, so there. This confirms that the same species accommodate this reef and that the census has been correctly done. The index close to 0, it's maybe due to errors due to the lack of experience. So a group of 12 non-specialistic voluntary divers was shown to reach a mean level of precision in the census of reef population equivalent to that achieved by an experienced researcher. Even with the bare minimum of training in the census 1, non-specialists can collect consistent data and a volunteer can be trained in a period less than 2 weeks. We can conclude that there was no significant loss in accuracy associated with the use of non-specialistic specialists in these trials. And for the limitation of this research, maybe you can find that the divers memorize the size of some strips according to their position on the line. And for them, it was not possible to keep the distance from the observer to the canvas strips constant at 3 meters. And this method was not suited to determine length frequency distribution of small spaces. For the solution of this research, we can maybe changing the order of strips on the line between trials to prevent memorization and try to don't go closer than the stipulated 3 meters distance from the models. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for presentation. And can you go to the result page? You put 3 figures on the right side, but the figures is too small to us to read. Is I can see the x-axis and y-axis. Yeah.
My figures are too small, so he can read the axis.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And I think you can try to express to yourself instead of watching the script.
I have to try to explain by myself and don't read the paper.
I think you could consider to reduce some insignificant information and focus on main point. Or like this, the text is too much for me.
She said that the text is too much and maybe I have to focus in main points.
Thank you for your presentation, but I think the font size is too small if the classroom is big and the people see the back side can clearly to see what you put on the slides.
He said that the figures are too small.
Font size.
The size of the text.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
it's too small. Okay.
Okay, thanks your presentation. I think there's the logical flow is very nice. I think it's well structured presentation, but I have little questions about the page 10. You just say that this A is the differences between individual divers and B is differences between the all divers. I just curious how this computer you just randomly choose one divers and do these surveys, or you just what's the difference between the two?
She wants to know the difference about the figure A and B because the A it's about individual and the B it's about all of the diver. So in the E they choose yes individual divers and they just calculate the mean, and in the other one they take all of the results about the group and they do a mean. So one it's about just one individual divers and the other it's all of the results about the group.
You mean the one is
The A,
yes?
they just took all of the results about about one individual divers and they do a mean about that. And the B, they took all of the
Oh.
group results and they do a mean.
It's like a sums. The
Sorry?
B or A just randomly pick one
Yes, it's
diverse.
randomly people in the
Okay,
group.
and just do
Like
this
in this group of
transition.
12, they
Okay,
took
okay.
just one.
Yes, yes.
So in this talk, the introduction part, she used these nice images so you know that what the topic was about. So images said was is always welcome. However, you probably also noticed from the response of the audience that your slides have a lot of text. So, and therefore, and one thing is you were not really using the pointer. So there were some slides where I was really lost, where I'm not sure where you are because you have text here and there. So I was lost. So suggested by the audience, so they now know what's maybe my ideal presentation is to reduce the text, not the word counts, and use larger font, and whenever possible use the cursor so we can follow you better. And then I'm sure next time you will be able to look at the audience because this topic is actually very interesting and also a nice story. So I think you can speak more like this. So we know you are really, you look confident. And then and presentation of your figure is you need to first explain this, the axis. Okay, so here, like as always question, I was having the same question. So what's the difference between this and this? Okay, so please explain the axis and this is again, yeah, this is too small. So I can't even see it here. What's that? So, okay, this is extremely small. So please enlarge it. And then regarding the table, I would always say, please do not copy and paste table from the paper because this usually contains more information than you need for your presentation. A good presentation would be you have to make the table yourself and you condense the information to the extent that you exactly need. And right. Yeah, that's mostly format questions. So, and the sample display. It's good that you make this color coding and you also remind the audience again, what's the meaning of these numbers. So these are very important. So in this regard, I think these slides, because these slides, especially words like this and that, usually create pressure. It's like, oh, I don't know what that is. So you can maybe simplify it and you just focus on the meaning of this index. And I think the conclusion, so I think this one is sort of, is that your conclusion? Yeah. Okay, so then this conclusion, I think it's, okay, so this conclusion is well supported by the data. Good. Okay, so I think next time you will be able to do better to show improvement. So thank you, Luna.